The March of the Living takes place to mark Holocaust Memorial Day. Tens of thousands march from Auschwitz to remember those who died. Now, the pandemic has prevented it this year, so instead a group of famous faces have been to hear the stories of some of those who survived.
Great to obviously educate people. I mean, I've learned so much more today from hearing it from Evie, and I think the more we can talk about it, obviously, that's what it's about, really,
Talking to Marla, a real life survivor of the Holocaust, this happened within her time. The Holocaust wasn't very long ago. We still need to continue to change our ways in every aspect.
There are too many people who walk around naively thinking that was the past.
Well, this was the scene about half an hour ago in Jerusalem. Every year the country marks Holocaust Memorial Day with the sound of a 2-minute siren. A ceremony has taken place at the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial site, with Prime Minister Netanyahu being one of many people laying wreaths. Well, joining us now is Holocaust survivor Marla Tribic and Scott Saunders, founder of the Holocaust educational charity March for the Living UK. It's a pleasure to see you both this morning. Scott, can I just start with you and ask, why do you think it is so important that we continue to hear this message year after year?
Look, I think ultimately, when you're talking about Holocaust survivors, and you go and hear them in a place where they suffered so much, it adds to the educational process. You can hear them on a Zoom call, you can hear them in an interview, but to stand with them actually at the gates of Auschwitz is something which is almost impossible to describe. I think the most important thing is that these survivors have such an amazing story to tell about survival, about resilience, and about rebuilding their lives, that it's a lesson for all of us.
Marla, I've had the pleasure of talking to several Holocaust survivors over the years. It is always a privilege, and it would be a privilege to hear some of your story today. What happened to you as a young girl?
Well, I was born in Poland, and war started on the 1st of September, and my life changed completely. Ours was the first town to have a ghetto, so from the 1st of November 1939 until the end of the war, I was living under Nazi occupation, and I went through all the things that followed, which was ghetto, first labor camps, then concentration camps, and I ended up in Bergen-Belsen when I was liberated by the British Army, who were wonderful, incidentally. It's not incidental, it's a very important point.
How difficult is it to look back at what happened to you? And I know you lost an awful lot of family members and a young sister, I know. I mean, how hard is it to look back and be able to talk about this now in 2021?
Well, in a way, it gets worse as time goes on and one thinks back. And although it's also becoming sort of unbelievable, I thought, how could all that happen? But nevertheless, it's still very painful. It never really goes away.
I just wonder, that unbelievable comment you make is so important, isn't it? Because if it starts to become a little bit unbelievable for you, it's incredibly difficult for the rest of us to appreciate the absolute horrors that went on, and actually how close they can be to resurfacing if we're not careful.
Yes, I think it is very important that people are aware and that they know, that they're educated about what can happen when a civilization breaks down, when a despot rules, when there is prejudice and discrimination. It all starts very slowly. I mean, it was a long process of over 5.5 years. But I don't know. It's difficult to sort of accept that the whole world stood by and nothing happened for 5.5 years. Looking back on it, it is very horrific. But I won't say I obviously believe it. I've been through it, and that's why I'm talking. And I think it's important for people to know what happened, and not to be bystanders, and to take action, and to really care about what's going on in the world. And much as we do, very often nothing, no help comes. Well, no help came to us for 5.5 years. But I know it was a terrible war. It was a war where so much happened. There's so much to learn about it. And hopefully that, it could be avoided with enough education and people taking action.
Do you think when people hear your stories, I mean, do they resonate particularly with the young, the very young today? Do they have an interest in hearing what you have to say?
Well, I can say with certainty that they do, because I know their reactions and I get it from them in writing. And I get the most amazing letters. I've received one just now, not one, as of a set of them from a school in London. I just can't believe how much they care and how important it is to them to know about it, to hear about it, and their comments. Really, I couldn't even try to repeat the way they put it so eloquently. I'd love other people to see it. But for fear of sort of showing off all the things that they say, because they refer to me personally. That's the person that they've sort of have met and sort of heard my story. But of course, it applies to so many other people, survivors who went through all different experiences. And it's amazing how varied the experiences were. Because even if one was in the same place at the same time, one still experienced it differently. And I was extremely lucky during the war. I really, I could give I could give several instances where I wouldn't be around. I would have gone very early on, with my mother and sister. And out of my family of 5, the 2 of us survived. My brother, Ben Helfgott, is the only other survivor of my family. And he's been very active in Holocaust education, right from the very beginning, when people weren't even aware or didn't talk about it. And but I know why. Excuse me. At the beginning, people didn't talk because it was too painful, and because the war had just finished and people had their own problems as a consequence of the war. There was so much to do after the war. But eventually people started listening, and now I know that there's a great demand for speakers, and there aren't that many around, and people are certainly interested. I would love to show people some of these letters and what they say. They really do want to know. Young people do care. At least that's my experience.
Well, I mean, I hope that all those letters and things will be kept, so that for generations and generations to come, people can still learn from your experiences and see how people have reacted to you. I'm not one, Marla, to talk about age necessarily, but I think it's worth pointing out that you are 90 years old, I think I'm right in saying, which is, if you don't mind me saying, which is remarkable, and I think a great privilege for us that you are here at the age of 90 to be able to talk about those things which happened such a long time ago, but which we still need to be so active in making sure don't happen again. It is a privilege to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. And Scott, thank you as well for joining us this morning to talk about the March of the Living. A real pleasure to see you both today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know, it is remarkable, absolutely remarkable to see a lady like Marla, and said at 90 to have such vivid memories and to be able to tell us what went on in a way that we can understand.